J.M. Nugent, After the Party. This is a short story. In the first page, what's the story about? You can't really tell from the first page. As it goes on, Emma hosts her husband's last birthday party before he dies of cancer. So it's a good premise for a story. And the description of what happens there in the story, Emma's hosting of the party, highlights one of the problems which is there at the beginning. Her hosting is largely passive. It's a series of actions that fit the recognisable setting, a party, rather than individual actions in response to a crisis. So the death hasn't happened yet. And this is a structural problem. Withholding the information about her husband's imminent death gives the reader a weak orientation in the first half of the story. Structural misjudgments then usually have wider consequences. And I want to explain how this holding back of essential information creates problems for the story, in particular the first half. On page 1, without the information about her husband's death, the reader has a range of questions. What is Emma's problem? Why the moping? What does she want? The answer is to act as if her husband doesn't have cancer. But there's absolutely no way of telling this from the first page, or in fact from the first 5 pages. So this lack of orientation is compounded by some more specific contradictions within the text that raise questions of precision and progress. The text needs to be precise to communicate a vision of what's happening in the story. And the story needs to make progress to seduce the reader. So 9 lines from the bottom. There's imprecision in the characterization of Paul. He's fussed, but he's also easy, 2 lines later. On line 6, the children are ants, but they're also imps, 5 lines from the bottom. It helps the reader better place the characters if these decisions are made by the writer. Is Paul fussed or is he easy? Are the children ants or imps? The children are also still there at the end of the page. So on page 1, Emma hasn't made progress in getting the children out of her kitchen. In a story, a reader is looking for progress, however small that might be. The reader wants progress and expects it. So what has actually happened here on the first page? Emma has burnt her finger. She's almost tripped over a child. Paul collects the canapes. Paul garnishes the canapes. Paul distributes the canapes, watched by Emma. Emma fills the dishwasher, and the mother-in-law asks for ice. Now I appreciate what the text is trying to do here. Lots of things happen, and there should be a pathos about the minutiae of everyday life in the shadow of death. However, this doesn't apply here because there is no shadow of death. That doesn't come until page 6. So what's left behind? The boring bits of a party. This suggests that you've edited the text as the writer. You know what's going to happen next. The reader doesn't. So as an editor, you need to approach the text as a reader and amend accordingly. Otherwise, the reader will ask, why is so little of importance taking place? Go back to the title, After the Party. The story as written is in fact about the party itself. So this may betray the fact that you as a writer realise that what happens next is more interesting than what's happening now. You have a story, but you're writing the wrong part of it. And that's often how a structural problem will manifest itself. Always be sure in your own mind you're writing the most interesting section of the story.